So I'm very excited because this is the first time I've done a Facebook Live, and today I'm getting to chat to Craig Nadashakti Norris. And I've just been thinking with Craig, we've just been trying to work out how long have I known Craig, because I met Craig through Forrest Yoga when I was really into Forrest Yoga for a while, and I would go on trainings, and Craig was at trainings, and Craig was sometimes assisting trainings, and anyway, I reckon it must be about 7-8 years, something like that, since I've met Craig. Yeah, so Craig Nadashakti Norris, he's a yogi. He's dialing up from London, where he runs Renaissance Yoga and Wellbeing, which is a yoga studio in Brockley, South London. And increasingly, like me, he's also broadcasting lots of yoga via the interwebs for people who are not in South London as well. And he's been practicing yoga for at least 20 years. And he's also been involved in a lot of teacher training programs over the last 10 years as well. So he was in fact involved in the Inspiratrix Yoga Teacher Training program we ran last year. He was one of our trainers, and he's hopefully going to be involved this year as well. So anyway, Craig, welcome. Welcome to the Inspiratrix Yoga Facebook page. How have you seen yoga evolve over the last 20 years?
Wow. Yeah, so it's been a massive shift, and I think that because it's become such a mainstream thing now. I mean, when I first came into yoga and started practicing, it was the weird thing to do. People used to make jokes about, oh, you're doing yoga now, and other crazy puns like that, because people didn't really know what it was, and it was really kind of out there. But now it's such a mainstream thing that so many people, even if they don't know what exactly it is, everyone's heard about it. Everyone knows it is something that anyone and everyone has access to in some form or another. So that's the main thing that I've observed for sure. And it's just grown so exponentially, across the world. And when I first started practicing, it was really difficult to find a teacher training. There wasn't that much choice in styles that you could do. There was a hell of a lot of Iyengar. It was anyone could do Iyengar, it was everywhere. But types of vinyasa yoga, that wasn't really about when I was first practicing. So the amount of styles there are, and the amount of just the amount of people that are practicing, and the growing consciousness around it, I think, are the main things. So, and I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. I think whenever there is more of something, it accentuates both polarities. It's like when people who are rich say, when you're rich, it doesn't solve your problems, it just expands upon whatever is already there. And it's the same with yoga. I think that it's just expanded upon there being yoga that is very kind of bland and doesn't really do much. And then there is so much yoga that is creating so much beautiful healing and therapy for people, and personal and spiritual development. So I think a lot of people can get yoga's got very cheap now, but I think that's just a focus that people have got stuck on.
And I mean, I wanted to say as well, if you're watching this live on Facebook, do feel free to go to the Inspiratrix Yoga page and drop a question for Craig in the comments on the live stream. Obviously, if you're watching this on catch up, you won't be able to do that. But if you're watching live, do let us know and drop Craig a question. I also feel, Craig, like we've been in a massive time of change, because over the last year in COVID times, suddenly working face to face with people or even touching other people has become a thing that's not possible anymore. How have you navigated this last year when so much about what kind of yoga was has really shifted and widened and evolved?
Yeah, totally. Well, I was very privileged in the way that I had already started teaching online the way that many people are on Zoom. I've been teaching for a particular online company that they weren't using Zoom, they had their own program. And so I already had my foot in the door, if you like, about being able to teach online and how to connect with people in that way. Because I think that was a big concern for both practitioners and teachers at the beginning of the pandemic was, oh God, we've got to go online. It's going to really cut off the amount of connection that we have. And I think whatever we get stuck in thinking is what we're going to manifest. It's the same with any aspect of life. The more, whatever we focus on, we're going to create more of. So we can choose to look at it in a way, okay, it's just a different modality in needing to do it online. Obviously, there isn't the touch and the physical connection. And but I remember with because my studio Renaissance, we literally opened in November 2019, so 3 months before the first lockdown, which isn't the best time to start a new studio, but you know, it's just the way things roll. And as soon as that happened, I put the studio online even before we had to. I remember being at the studio teaching on the Monday before the first lockdown. I think it was like the 15th of March or something like that. And I just phoned up my two partners, Velia and my personal partner, Mickey, but also my business partner, and said, we need to shut the studio tonight, even though it wasn't locked down yet. I said, we need to start the studio tonight because we need to look after our students. That's our first and foremost thing. And so we shut on the Tuesday and opened on the Wednesday with a whole new schedule. And I spoke to all of the teachers that we have individual, and I says, look, our focus has changed a little bit. Obviously, we can't touch and be with people in the same way, but what our members are paying for here and what we are offering as a service is community. And to keep that connection going, because I can see that what's coming up is a time when people are going to be starved for connection. And in that way, that's the big shift that we went into. And although we didn't have, you know, we'd only been open 3 months, but the members that we got in that time, which we got quite a lot in a short space of time, have basically stuck with us throughout. And I know a lot of studios, especially some of the other studios in London, a lot of their members just went, no, sorry, I can't do online. But we've been really fortunate in, we built a community really, really quickly and solidly. And because that's what our intent was, that was what our resolve was, to have our online classes as creating community.
I just want to say hi to Helen and Mel and Lowry who are watching on Facebook. Lowry dropped a question in for you as well. Yeah. Do you think there's a strong future for online classes, or are they going to go away once everything goes back to normal? What's your view?
I think they're going to continue. I do think they're going to continue. I think it's opened up a new world for many people. And just last week, when the UK, well, the England route out of lockdown was announced, I taught a class on the I think it was on the Tuesday, I think, and then I taught a class on the Wednesday night, and already I had a couple of people going, "You're not going to stop the online classes, are you?" And I said, "Look, we've got no plans to stop the online classes. If it's still in demand, then we'll keep it going." Because something that happened as soon as we did an online membership, was we did get people from outside the area who are now members of our studio in London. And it's very unlikely that they're ever going to ever visit our bricks and mortar studio. But at the same time, they really enjoy the classes of the community of teachers that we've got. And that little community of people that they see regularly going to the classes.
I mean, I think what's also true is that online yoga can be more accessible for some people. Not everybody lives 5 minutes walk from a yoga studio. Not everybody's able to kind of leave their house, maybe because they're looking after kids or transport's an issue. So I actually think online yoga can open up the possibility of many more people coming to yoga that couldn't before, which is really good. I just had a message from Helen going, yes, I'm staying online, loving it. So yeah, I think it's an amazing thing to be involved in something at a time of such change, and sometimes it gets you down, all the change, but then sometimes it's also really exciting. I think that we can be in evolution as yoga teachers in this strange 21st century world. I wanted to ask you though, because I know that one of your specialisms is yoga philosophy. And you spent a lot of time studying Sanskrit and Vedic chanting and some of the real depth roots of yoga in India. And I wanted to ask you how you feel that the yoga we practice in the 21st century relates to that. Does it relate to the roots of yoga?
I think it's where your intent is coming from again. I think that you can teach a very powerful class and not mention one Sanskrit word. I do believe that. And but I also see that there's a benefit in using that as well. I think if we have an idea of where we're coming from, what is it we're actually doing in the yoga class, and really being grounded in our own practice. And if we want to practice yoga asana for a physically therapeutic reason, then fair enough. And I think that, you know, you can get a great benefit from doing that. But there is also that possibility of going deeper, and knowing that there's always going to be looking to find that teacher that's working for you where you're at. And it may be that there's a teacher that brings in the philosophy and you're like, oh no, this isn't for me. And that's fine. But equally, you may be that you practice the physical aspect of yoga and it's like, oh, okay, so I've got a bit more freedom in my body and I feel that my energy is flowing a little easier and my mind is perhaps a little calmer and I'm a little bit more curious to what my mind is made of, if that makes sense. And the philosophy has answers to that. So in that way, I think to look at the philosophy, because especially like the Yoga Sutras, can be a window into looking at psychology from an Eastern perspective. And I think, and especially in this time that we're in, that mental health is something that we really need to consider. And the mental health impact of the lockdowns and anxiety around COVID and the amount of more time that we're using technology, we need to think about mental health. And so this is where yoga practice is important. And we can't get away from technology. It is becoming more and more important and intrinsic into our lives. And so it's finding a way to bring a harmony between our practice, our yoga practice, and technology. And that the two can coexist in a healthy way. but we need to use the yoga practice to bring in more awareness of our relationship to technology.
And are there specific ways you feel that yoga is really supportive of people's mental health? Which way, and would that be kind of really from the physical practice or from a more philosophical angle?
All of the above. All of the above, because even from, because the physical body, as human beings, we like to compartmentalize everything, and it's not wrong. It's just the way that we find ease in understanding the world around us. But in a idea of reality, they're one and the same thing. So the physical body, or the energy that moves through your body, or the thing that we identify as thoughts, are all part of the same makeup, but are vibration at different frequencies. So whereas the physical body is something that's a lot slower a frequency of vibration, and something that we identify as mind being something of a faster movement. My point is, it's all one and the same thing. So if we were to just practice the asana and perhaps some breath with that, that is going to give you immense mental health benefit, because it is going to work on us on a vibratory level. In the same way, if we look at the philosophy, basically, if we think of these as facets of a diamond, and like a diamond that we could call ultimate truth, and so the asana, the posture practice, or the breath practice, or the philosophy practice, or the meditation practice, or even, coming from another practice like Qigong, or a practice that Buddhism, or whatever it is. These are all facets, and if we practice any part of those facets, we're basically polishing that facet. So when we polish that facet, we can see a window into that diamond of truth. And any window into that diamond of truth is a diamond of truth into who we are at our essence, whether that is from a physical side or a philosophical side. It's just seeing it from a different vibration.
That's awesome. I love hearing you talk, Craig. You always bring the philosophy down to not down to, but you always present it in a way that's very understandable and very real and very applicable in people's lives, which I think is important, because sometimes these things can just seem abstract, and the nature of consciousness is vast and inexplicable, whereas we're all living consciousness, and we're all exploring that in so many different ways in different times. Let me see what other questions I've got to ask you. I was going to ask you about teacher trainings, because we're both teacher trainers, and one of the revolutions I'm seeing out there at the moment is that everybody's stuck at home, but then suddenly there are a proliferation of offerings kind of across the internet, some of which are very cheap, some of which are more moderately priced for relative to kind of what people were paying for teacher trainings. What's your kind of view about all the teacher trainings out there, if people are thinking about teacher training?
I think that, and it might sound like a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I do feel like all the different teacher trainings have a purpose. And certain people will be at a certain level of understanding or vibration that they're vibrating at, that a particular training will resonate with them. But saying that, I will say that there's a lot of stuff out there. Okay, it may be cheaper, but you've also got to look at not just what is worth of your money, but what is worthy of your time as well. because you could do a training that perhaps doesn't have as much depth or as much practice for yourself or reflection on yourself, and maybe just some articles to read and some pre-recorded videos to watch. But from my experience of facilitating on teacher trainings, and I've been facilitating on teacher trainings for about 10, 11 years now, what I have seen is a training, the people who do a good training that really allows them to take a reflective look at themselves and really transform from there, they end up making friends for life on those trainings, because it really was a pivotal moment in their life. I think that a lot of the trainings out there that with yoga, where you're just doing it by yourself and there isn't that connection with a group or personal connection with your teacher, I think it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a lost moment. And for me, the yoga practice and the different aspects of the yoga practice is a magical thing that I want people to really experience, because really it's about experiencing themselves. So those trainings that are a little bit shorter or like really cheap and are just recordings and a bit of writing to read, I think that you just can't get the experience that it is possible to get when you're connecting with a live group.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the big difference is some of the things on offer out there are basically just a bunch of recordings. You're going to sit at home and watch them, and you're not, like you mentioned, you're not getting that whole sangha, that whole experience of working with other people and growing with other people. And significantly, you're not actually getting the experience of teaching. And it's always been the case with yoga teacher trainings. Some of them don't actually give you that much experience of teaching because they're glorified yoga holidays. But there are a number of good trainings out there where actually you're practicing yoga teaching every single day that you're in that training, and you're really building your skills across the course of that course, whether it's a month or whether it's a year, so that you come out the other end and it's like, it's not a foreign thing that you've suddenly got a bunch of people, whether they're on Zoom or whether in the room, and you're going to share some yoga with them. So I think, yeah. But I think it's also great that there's this multiplicity of options out there for people now, and I'm sure some of those kind of bunch of pre-recordings will bring people into the practice and will bring people into the teaching. And there's also, I mean, in yoga, there's a long history of many people who've come into yoga or come into teaching yoga really through kind of one-to-one learning as well. There are many different doors. There are many different doors there.
Yeah, I think you did touch on a really valid point, which is the teaching every day. Because I have experienced a lot of people who would go and believe that if they go to Bali and they go to India to do a teacher training, that's going to be more authentic and going to make them better teachers. And then they come back from those trainings and they've done like a couple of like 10-minute slots of teaching throughout the whole training. And they're not actually able to teach. They just have some theory. So I think if people are looking for a teacher training, they do need to look at, okay, what's going to give them the experience to be able to go out into this industry and be able to teach.
Yeah, and actually recognizing that that's such an evolving thing right now, and that what I mean. My colleague Adrian, I remember at the end of his teacher training course, which was only a year or two ago, he was asking about online yoga, and he was told, it's really niche, nobody really does it very much. And now it's this core part of actually potentially how many of us are working with people. So yeah, it's good to to be up to date with what the possibilities are. What are you working on right now, Craig? What are you excited about creatively for this year?
So, I mean, what came out of lockdown for me was I started offering a training in Yoga Nidra, and I've ended up, because I had such demand with it, I'm actually on my third training in this year of training Yoga Nidra teachers. And I love this practice so much, and it's something that I share in the training that we did together, Claire, as well. I just think it's an amazing practice for self-exploration. So I am possibly, I haven't got dates for it, but I'm looking at doing one as soon as the studio opens. I want to do a hybrid one in my own studio, which will be online and in person. So there's that going on. I am looking forward to end of August. So possibly without any restrictions, run a summer UK retreat, which would be amazing. There was a window last year and I managed to run a retreat last summer, but obviously with the COVID restrictions, and it worked. It was a challenge, but it worked. But I'm looking forward to the possibility of running a retreat without that. And the other thing is I'm actually doing more study myself. I'm just so addicted. And I am starting a master's course in consciousness, spirituality, and transpersonal psychology. So, which is a bit of a mouthful and a bit of a headful, but I am really looking forward to that and bringing what I learned from that into my yoga teaching, but also like the trainings that I'm involved with. Because it's really taking what is the therapeutic and the psychologically therapeutic aspects of spiritual practices, from everything from shamanism to yoga, to a broad range of spiritualities. And what is it that works? Taking what is it that works and bringing that and presenting it. So I'm really looking forward to diving into that.
We're super excited as well, because this year on the Inspiratrix Yoga Teacher Training, you are going to be doing some philosophy and meditation for our people. So that should be happening around about September, October this year. And I'm really hoping that actually, because that'll be on Tuesday evenings and you'll be dialing up from London, we'll be able to open up some slots in that for people who aren't doing the teacher training as well, to come and experience a bit of philosophy and meditation with you as well. And we're also hoping to get you back at some point in that fourth quarter as well, to maybe do a 3-day in-person CPD training for existing yoga teachers. So we'll see, we'll see what happens with all the COVID stuff, but definitely there's going to be the opportunity for Inspiratrix Yoga people to get involved with you and to learn more from you later this year. I should also mention as well that I'm doing a thing coming up in March on Wednesday evenings, which is Deepen Your Yoga, which is a series of Wednesday evenings with me where I'm teaching some intermediate yoga classes, followed by a little bit of this kind of discussion around the nature of yoga, yoga philosophy, controversies of yoga, and some of the roots of yoga. So if people are interested in that kind of thing, there's information about Deepen Your Yoga on the Facebook page as well. So I want to thank you so much, Craig, for joining up and talking to us this evening. And thank you to everybody who's been posting questions and saying hi. Come and do it again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Claire.